Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, featuring industry thought leaders sharing problem-solving insights to help grow your business and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stuart Andrew Alexander.
Today's guest is someone who has been on a spiritual path of growth and healing for the past 34 years of his life. And he's been an entrepreneur for the past 22 years. Although he started out searching for ways to heal himself, after being exposed to so many wonderful modalities, including the Sedona method, the journey, Reiki, oneness blessing, theta healing, and the Yuan method, he realized that he could actually use his talents, knowledge, and experience to help others heal, become happier, and grow personally, spiritually, and professionally. He now brings more awareness and consciousness into all aspects of people's lives, as well as their businesses, by helping local thought leaders in New York City to create and connect to their following and build their reputation through the use of online radio, so they can be recognized as experts within their field. And he's here today, ladies and gentlemen, to talk about some of the problems, obstacles, and misconceptions surrounding the use of online radio to become known as a leader in your field. So, with that said, and without any further ado, let's welcome him onto the show, Sam Liebowitz, also known as the Conscious Consultant. Sam, so pleased to have you on, and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Stuart. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I really look forward to having a wonderful conversation.
Excellent. We're all excited to have you on, Sam, and really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. So, let's get cracking with the very first question and set the tone for the rest of the interview. Briefly, can you just describe who is your perfect prospect, Sam? Who is it that you help?
Well, who I help are what I call local thought leaders, people with a message, people who have something within themselves that they're trying to get out, connect with their audience, and spread a message of empowerment, of inspiration or education to a worldwide audience.
Okay, that sounds very interesting. So we're talking about entrepreneurs mostly?
We're talking about entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, what I like to call holopreneurs, holistic practitioners. Very frequently, I work with coaches, consultants, public speakers, trainers, new authors.
Okay, that sounds very interesting, Sam. So we can dig a little bit deeper into that in a short while. But firstly, let me ask you, when you're out there working with the people that you love working with the most, the people you have a passion around, the people you help the most, when you're out there working with them, what are the common obstacles that you find prevent them from achieving their desired outcome?
Mostly, I find it's three things. It's usually a combination of a lack of knowledge, just because they've never done anything like this before, have their own online radio show. It tends to be a very daunting idea to them because they think that it's some very lofty goal, and instead of sort of looking at it from a more practical way. And a lot of that comes from just a lack of experience. People think that, well, if they haven't done a radio show before, if they haven't, stood in front of a microphone, if they haven't gotten in front of an audience, that they can't do it. And more often than not, it's the people who have no background, no experience, that once they start to do it, they love it, they enjoy it, and they end up actually doing very well. But the last piece, which I think is the most important, is that there's a lack of guidance. Many people think, oh, yeah, I can do an online radio show, or I can do a podcast, and they jump into it without realizing that there are some real steps to take, and there can be a real structure and strategy about how to do it in a way that really serves them the best. and no fault of their own. It's just that they haven't had the opportunity, the guidance. They haven't had somebody to coach them along the way.
Now, Sam, I'd like to in a few moments just talk about why is it people out there, the listeners, should, why should they work with you? But before we go into that, I mean, you just gave some very useful insights into some of the obstacles that you come across with the people that you help. Can you take just one of those obstacles that you just named and give us a blow by blow how to overcome, or what is it you do to help people overcome that particular obstacle? Just take one of them, please.
Well, really, I think the main thing is sort of the main two things, kind of lack of experience or lack of guidance. And really, like so many times people say, well, I don't know if I'm ready. And I always say to them, it's not about being ready. It's just about jumping in and doing it. And so what I do is I make things very easy for people to get started, because I provide, the whole technology platform. I provide the time slot. I provide even promotions for people coming in. So literally all they have to do is just show up in the studio, do their magic, and leave, and I take care of everything else. My team takes care of everything else. And there's always this kind of fear about doing something new because they've never done it before. So I try and make things as easy as possible for people to get started. And inevitably, once they get started, once they just kind of jump into the pond and start swimming a little bit, they find that it's really not as difficult, not as daunting as they first thought it was. And it's just that lack of experience. And I just say to people, there's no time like the present to get started. Just start doing it. And it's true of anything, whether it's an online radio show or anything in life. Just start doing it. Start gaining the experience right away. Start practicing. And as you practice, you'll get better and better. Just don't expect yourself to be an expert day one. You're not going to be. But just dip your toe in the water. Take the baby steps and just continually move forward.
I mean, I think of, listening to your answer, Sam, I think of the analogy when you first start to learn to drive a car. And you get in the car and you have the driving instructor. I don't know what you guys call it in America, but in Britain we call them the driving instructor.
Right.
Okay, that's the guy that's teaching you how to drive. Okay, so you're in the car, you have the driving instructor sat next to you, and you are doing you're making every move consciously. You are checking your mirror, you're looking over your shoulder, you're thinking dip the clutch and press the accelerator and the brake, and every move is a conscious move. You're thinking about everything. And then through the repetition, as you take more lessons, you begin to, by a natural process of osmosis, you begin to do things naturally.
Right, it's developing that muscle memory.
Yeah, there you go. And is that similar to what happens when you help your prospects, the people you work with the most, when they come into the studio? They're like a deer in headlights. They've got all of these buttons and lights and controls and slides and all of these things around them, all of this technology, that they think, oh my God, how am I going to drive this thing? And then, within a few weeks, they're doing it, it's second nature. Is it something along those lines?
Exactly. It's this whole concept of, I think it was Malcolm Gladwell who came up with the idea that it takes 10,000 hours of doing anything to become a master at it. I'm not quite sure if I necessarily agree with that number, but it takes a certain amount of time of repetition. The first time you go to a gym to work out, you don't press 250 pounds, bench press 250 pounds right away. You start with the, 20-pound weights, 30-pound weights, 40-pound weights, depending where you are. And it's through the repetition of you building up that muscle. And it's the same with anything in life. It's just, you show up, you do what you need to do, and then repeat, and then repeat, and then repeat. And then over time, because you've done it, I mean, whether it's public speaking, driving a car, writing, anything, just the more that you actually do it, you're actually creating new neural pathways in your brain. They're lining up in a new way to make what you're doing more comfortable. So that repetition is so important. And really, people get so frightened like the first time they do something because it's so unknown. And what I really do is I encourage people, as opposed to becoming frightened, become curious. Just the wonderment of what could be, instead of being, I don't know what's going to happen. It's like, I wonder what could happen. And that's really, I feel, the people I work with and the people who do their radio shows with me is they feel very comfortable when they come into our studio. It's not a sterile soundstage kind of studio. It's an office. We're also a wellness center, and so it's very comfortable. So when they come and they sit in, they're not all stiff. They're a little bit more relaxed. And I'm constantly supporting them, giving them moral support, giving them just those little nudges and those little adjustments, the 1 millimeter adjustment, just to make them feel more comfortable and supported, as they continue to learn, as they continue to do, and they improve, an inch by inch by inch.
So looking at somebody who's wanting to work with you, Sam, and they're in the studio, it's the first time, they're nervous, all the things that we've just spoken about. So let's say they're on the dark side, okay? So they're in the dark.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that transformation once they have mastered the hands-on, the technology and all the buttons and everything, and that becomes second nature. Let's talk about the benefits of when they cross over to the light side and they can actually start talking with confidence and with conviction about their craft, about their passion, about whatever it is they're helping their audience to achieve. Let's start talking about that. What's the benefits of that, of actually putting in the work, right? Crossing over from the dark side into the light, and then there we are. Let's talk about that.
It's so much fun to see that transformation happen before your eyes when they first come in and they're really nervous and maybe, the first 1 or 2 episodes of the show, they don't do that well, but then they start to get more comfortable and then they start really loving it. And then it's like the best compliment I get. They come in and they say, you know what, Sam, now this is the most fun part of my week. I look forward to coming in and doing my show all week long. And it's great because once they start to enjoy it, they build that confidence, and now they go out and they start, stretching themselves, and they start, doing a little bit more here, a little bit more there. And then by bringing, let's say, other people onto their show, or by using more strategies to engage their audience and getting that positive feedback, they really begin to shine. And I mean, just something that happened in the past 6 months, one of my hosts who does a show all about small and mid-sized nonprofits has been working with me quite a while now, but just this year, he got named in 2 different nonprofit blogs as one of the top thought leaders to follow in the nonprofit industry, specifically because of his radio show, because he has so many experts come on his show, because he's done it consistently and continually, and he's built up this trust with his audience. People notice, they don't necessarily notice overnight, but over time they notice what you're doing and what you're contributing to your industry, to your field, and what you're giving people, and then you start to become recognized. And now, because of all this stuff that he's done, because of these mentions in these blogs, because of getting all these followers now, what's happened is he actually starts to get phone calls from people asking him to do things for their nonprofit that he doesn't even do. He only does 2 things, and they ask him for things outside of his specialty because they feel that since he's been doing his show so long and he's had all these experts on, like, he must know everything about nonprofits. And though he does know quite a lot, his specialty is only 2 things. So even people call him, it's what I call this halo effect. it's like, oh, if he's so good at this, he must be good at everything around this. And what he ends up doing is having to feed even those extra clients onto strategic alliances that he's formed. And so he's really generated such a reputation for himself because he really came to it in a very giving manner. Now, of course, he also gets calls around things that he does do, and he does get not just clients from this, but he's gotten invited to speak at charity conferences. He's gotten asked to be a media sponsor. So his reputation has really come before him, and it's also helped him to get just amazing people onto his show. I mean, such names as Seth Godin, Craig Newmark of Newmark's List, who has this thing called Craig's Connects for nonprofits. And so he's really been able to garner these really, especially in, I'm not that familiar with the nonprofit industry, but he's gotten on some really big names in the nonprofit world onto his show because of his reputation, because of, what he's been doing for the past several years.
That is just phenomenal. I can just feel your passion and the pleasure that you have received from seeing that person who you helped. I don't know what his or her name is, but just being able to be a part of that and see them grow and be that recognition that they've received from putting in the hard work. So thank you for sharing that. I'm sure the listeners are going to be very grateful for that insight, Sam. So moving forward, you've shared some great information so far, but and let me just iterate, Sam. I am the voice of the listeners. Okay, so my next question may sound a little bit cheeky, it may sound a bit out there and in your face, but I've got to ask it on behalf of the listeners.
Sure.
What is your magic expert ability, Sam? Why should people even work with you?
I guess my ability is to really see within somebody their brilliance, their expertise, see what really makes them unique when they sometimes don't even see it themselves. Oftentimes people come to me, they don't even know what to call their show. They're not even really clear on their branding. And just from spending an hour with them, I pull out of them, their unique experience. I pull out with them, how their life, not just their work life, but their personal life and their spiritual life, their growth, their personal journey, how that really makes them unique and special and different, and why it's important for them to really convey that to their audience, and how important that authenticity and that realness, that truth is, and that that you can have fun, even if you're talking about a serious topic like business or personal growth or whatever, that you can still have fun with it, and that just by being themselves, that's when really they connect with their audience. That's what really then attracts their tribe to them, that the people who are longing to hear their message in the way they are telling it. There's so many people out there who all do, similar things. I mean, there's nobody in this world who does one thing that's completely unique from everybody else in the world. We're all different. And that's okay, because there's so many people, and different people will resonate with different people. With our language, our story, our background, how we come to, how we show up. And so what I do is I really help to support people and draw out of them that sort of unique frequency almost, that unique energy that makes them who they are, so that then when they're in front of the microphone and they're talking to their audience is really engaged with them. And again, their audience might be completely different from someone else's audience, and that's fine. But that their audience that really connects with their message, who they are and what they're saying, that those become their really loyal listeners.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that, Sam. Sam, I've got a bit of a personal question for you.
Sure.
You've been an entrepreneur for at least 22 years. That's correct, yes?
Yep, since 1993.
Well, I got to, congratulations for that. That in of itself is a feat to be recognized. However, during that 22-year span, what are some of the misconceptions that your prospects, the people that you love to work with, the people that you love to help, the people you have the most passion around helping, what are some of the most popular misconceptions that they have or may have about achieving their desired outcome of being able to build their reputation through the use of online radio so that they can eventually become a recognized expert within their field? If you could just go over possibly, at least three of them, maybe we'll have time to expand on a couple more, but please share your insights on that for us, please, Sam.
Sure. I'll start with just the most common misconceptions. The first one is, like, a lot of people think what if they do is just like having a show on Blog Talk Radio. And Blog Talk Radio is great. I don't put Blog Talk Radio down at all. It's a great way to get started. But what I do is different, because Blog Talk Radio, you're not in studio, which, all of my hosts come in studio. That's why I only deal with local people in New York City. And everything is done over the phone. And as you well know, I'm sure you've had experiences, there's sometimes technical issues that come up when you're doing things on the phone. Whereas when you're in studio and you're talking into a professional microphone with professional mixing equipment and systems in place, the sound quality is just much, much better. You just can't duplicate that through the use of stuff over the phone. And it's just a technological thing. So really what I focus on is really providing a very professional image for people. So, if you're going to do something like this, you want to do it professionally. So we're not Blog Talk Radio. The other thing is people tend to think what we do is just podcasting. And while podcasting is a piece of it, what I call what we do online radio, because with online radio, first of all, my shows are live, which means that the hosts can interact with their listeners while they're doing their show. People can call in and ask questions. They could email them questions, post on social media, and then the host can respond right away. So there's that certain amount of live interaction that you don't get when you're just podcasting, because podcasting is typically the recording that you post afterwards. Now, we do record all of our shows, and we do post them afterwards, so the podcast is available afterwards, but the shows all air live initially. So that's why it's radio, not just podcasting. So I really try and make that distinction for people, because podcasting has become so popular. Everyone thinks podcasting, and they don't realize that, there is this sort of subtle distinction. And to me, it's a very important distinction, because when you're live and you can engage your audience and they can call in and ask questions, that really is a wonderful mechanism for engaging your audience much more. I mean, even if they're just sending something to you via your Facebook page while you're on, if they hear you responding to their questions during your show, then they're going to be much more likely to listen to you live when you're actually airing it and not afterwards. So it's an important distinction. The other misconception I find a lot, which I educate people even before they start, is they feel like, oh, well, all I have to do is come and I'll get thousands of listeners after my first 2-3 shows. And the truth is, you don't get 1,000 listeners in 2 or 3 shows, because doing an online radio show, it's just like starting a blog, starting a video channel, doing anything. It takes time. People need to trust you. And one of the ways that you build trust is through consistency. And it's like they want to know you're there for the long haul. Tony Martinetti, the nonprofit consultant I spoke of earlier, he's been working with me now for over 5 years. So it took him some time, but now he's got over 10,000 subscribers on iTunes. As I mentioned, he's got, written up with these nonprofit blogs, and he's gotten tremendous benefit from doing his radio show. But, he's been with me the longest. He really stuck with it, and it took time. And so sometimes we have to kind of just switch our thinking from the more immediate, the more, this month, this quarter, into a little bit more of a longer-term point of view. And if you listen to or read, any of these, really enlightened content marketing people like Seth Godin and others, they'll all talk about the long tail. They talk about being in it for the long haul. They talk about is not, a short-term thing. I mean, this is a form of social media. Social media is not, a boom, 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 get 1 million followers overnight. It's the slow, consistent, continual building, continual contribution that attracts people and really lifts us up.
I know when I started out doing my show, one of the thoughts that I had was, oh man, I need lots of experience to do this, and it took me months and months and months just to make the first initial step. Is that also something you come across?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's not just true of this. I think it's true of almost anything in life. We always feel like, oh, I don't have the credentials to do this. Oh, I don't have the background to do this. The truth is, you know what? If it's something that appeals to you, that calls to you, you just got to start doing it. I mean, I've been doing public speaking since I was in college, and I remember the first time I got up there to deliver my first speech, my hands were shaking. I had everything written out on these little index cards, and I couldn't read my own handwriting, and it was awful. It was horrible.
Oh, dear.
I was so embarrassed by the time I finished. That was like the worst speech I ever could have given. But the good news is it was the worst speech that I ever gave. Because it was my first one, and then my second one was a little bit better, and my third one was better, and my fourth one was better. And really, I mean, as human beings, yeah, we learn a lot in school from studying, but really we learn best by doing. So it's not about having experience, it's about creating the experience for yourself and just doing it.
So if I'm an entrepreneur in New York and I'm listening to this show, or I've heard about what you do, Sam, and it sounds, get on the radio, that sounds pretty cool. Get on there and get myself in front of people, talk about the things I love to talk about, and then everything else will just take care of itself, right? Is that true?
Yes, I know. It's like, okay, all I got to do is show up. Because I make it so easy for people to just show up, do their genius, and they don't have to worry about the technical stuff. So they think, okay, that's it. That's all I have to do is show up. And as Woody Allen says, 80% of success is showing up. But there's that other 20%, which is very, very important because you have to let people know. You've got to put it out there. You've got to promote the fact you're doing a show. I tell all of my hosts, it's got to go on your business card. It should be in your email signature. Nobody should be able to Google you without finding out that you have a radio show as well. And you really want to integrate it into part of your business, your profession, whatever it is, your practice, whatever it is that you do, so that people know about it. Because if people don't know, how are they going to find you? And so it's really the sort of misconception of, I just got to, I just build it and people will come. Yeah, people will come if they know it's there, but you got to let them know it's there.
Right. But Sam, let me ask you this. I'm a plumber, and I'm a really, really good plumber. I mean, I was born with a spanner in my hand, right?
Okay.
And now come on, you're expecting me to go on radio? I'm a plumber. I use my hands. How's that going to work out?
Well, if you're a great plumber, you probably talk about plumbing to your friends. You do plumbing, little plumbing-related side things as a hobby. You build things. You're passionate about it. You love it. You can talk about it. It's just you think that, if I got to go in front of a microphone and talk about plumbing, like now I got to be professional. No, you just have to be passionate. I mean, of course, it helps to be professional. But if you're a great plumber, if it's in your blood, you can get up there and you could talk about it for hours. You just got to ignore the fact there's a microphone in front of you. That's the thing that makes you nervous.
And that applies across all industries then, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so when you're out there, Sam, and you have people come into the studio, they see what you can do, they've seen all of your great stuff online, and you're consulting, you're talking. One of the things that I really love about you, Sam, is you provide this holistic approach to your consulting. So it's not just about the radio, but you also look at the person as a whole. You look at the mindset, you look at everything, okay, from a 360-degree approach. I really love that. And I think being somebody sat in front of you, they're going to learn a lot even before they become a customer. But let's say you have somebody in front of you and they've listened, they've asked many questions, and they're ticking. Oh, you're just ticking the boxes. You're ticking the boxes. Yes, yes, yes. Everything's going fantastic, and you're thinking, yes, this person is going to be my next client. They definitely need it, and I can see exactly how I can help them and transform them from where they are now to where they want to be. But then all of a sudden, they turn around and they say, Sam, I'm sorry, I can't do this. Why does that happen to you, Sam? Why is it that the people that you can help the most don't buy from you or invest in you?
Well, I find that it's usually a combination of one or two different reasons, or a combination of both. First, we normally have a real fear about investing in ourselves. And that's really what doing an online radio show is about, is you're investing in yourself. You're putting something into putting your name out there, putting your word out there. And we, for some reason, psychologically, we tend to shirk back from that. We're afraid of that. It's all these fears creep in. It's like, oh my God, what happens if I am good at this? It's that kind of fear of success, fear of failure. Oh my God, what happens if I do it and I'm lousy and I bomb? Or what happens if I do it and I'm successful and I get all these clients? There are these unconscious fears. The amygdala, that reptile brain, really holds us back from taking that step into the unknown, because we know if we invest in ourselves, then we have to change, and we're going to change. And we just tend to have this innate fear of change to overcome. But even when you get them over that fear of change, the next thing that kicks up is this idea of actually committing to doing it, because it's not like a one-off thing. I've had people come to me and say, well, can I just come in and do just one show? I only want to do just one show and then, go on my way. And I was like, you can if you really want to, but I don't really do that because it doesn't really serve you and it doesn't really serve me. It's not going to give you the results you're looking for. So it takes this bit of a commitment to kind of come in on a weekly basis and put stuff out there on a regular basis, because that's where the real benefit is. But just because of the way society is, we tend to have this fear of making a commitment to something, because, we're afraid of, well, if I make the commitment and things don't work out, oh my God, look what I've done. So I really try and help people to see that it's by making the commitment that they really get the benefit, they really get the results that they're looking for. The interesting thing is, usually the people who are most afraid of making the commitment, once they make the commitment, things usually skyrocket for them. It's so funny. It's like the things we resist the most, once we give in to them, they're the very things that propel us forward.
That sounds like my sex life, Sam. But anyway, that's a topic for another day.
Yeah, another show.
Moving on. So far, you've been excellent, Sam. You've really given some educational, lots of information. But for the listeners out there who are thinking, yeah, this Sam Liebowitz guy, he sounds pretty cool. He sounds nice, but who is he? For the people who don't know, who is Sam? Can you briefly just share a little bit about your backstory and what led you to this field? Was it a book? Was it a movie? Was it a family member? Can you just please share a few anecdotes about that, please, Sam?
Sure. Well, I'm as I mentioned before, I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, and I say since 1993, but really I've been an entrepreneur since I was a little kid, because I used to go around selling the Sunday newspapers. I'd buy a bundle off the delivery truck, and then I'd go around to all the bars in the neighborhood and sell them to make some extra money. And then, I was doing things in high school and college. So I was working for myself at a pretty young age, although I did go into the corporate world for about 9 years. I worked for banks and financial services companies, even worked for a nonprofit. But my spirit is in being an entrepreneur. And once I became an entrepreneur, in the IT field, my background's really in technology, but I was never really a programmer per se. I was always kind of the guy who worked with end users, who translated technical stuff to non-technical people. And so I've had many careers like that. I've been in IT technology, support, had a couple of video companies, developed an online database for the aerospace industry. I even took a stint into real estate when things were going crazy here in New York. And then after that, everyone thinks, well, Sam, you're like such a great speaker. You must have always wanted to be in broadcasting. It's like, no, I'd never even crossed my mind. But then what happened, I was at a party, and a friend of mine introduces me to this friend of his and says, Sam, you got to meet my friend Giorgio. I'm like, okay. And so I'm talking to him, and he's telling me how he is an acupuncturist, and he had decided to become a Buddhist monk. And so he was selling off all his worldly possessions, including his acupuncture practice, and he told me about this online radio station. And then it sounded familiar, and I realized I knew somebody who was doing a radio show on his network. So, but at the time I met him, I'm just thinking, I network a lot, I know a lot of people, I'm not an acupuncturist, I'll just help him to sell his business so he can become a monk. But after coming in and meeting with him and talking with him, I just saw the potential and came up with this idea of bringing in another acupuncturist to handle his clients and the potential with the radio station that he had just started. And so I ended up actually buying it from him instead of helping him to sell it. And believe me, I had no idea what I was getting myself in for. It was really a trial by fire. I mean, he kind of dropped in and said, okay, here, you do this, do this, do this, do that. I can't come in tomorrow. You have to handle everything yourself. I'm like, what?
Nothing like one in the deep end, huh?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, this is a way in which, kind of like the way my spiritual path kind of led me into what my business is all about now, because if it hadn't been for, my spiritual studies and the other things, I wouldn't have been at this party. I wouldn't have met him, and this wouldn't have worked out. And I wouldn't have even had the thought to actually jump in and try it, even though it was something I'd never done before.
Awesome. And as they say, the rest is history, right?
Yes, rest is history.
Awesome. I love that story, Sam. So we're coming towards the end of the show. Unfortunately, I just feel like I'm just really getting to know you here, and we could sit here and talk for hours. However, time does not permit that. So Sam, for the people who are out there and they're listening to the show and they're wanting to build and connect with their following, they're wanting to build their reputation, and they're wanting to build that reputation through the use of online radio, and they want to be recognized as an expert within their industry. So for those kind of people, Sam, and they're listening in and they're thinking, I want to know more, how can they connect with Sam Liebowitz?
Well, the best way to get in touch with me is just via email, and I'll give you the simplest email address I have, which is sam@talkradio.nyc. And that will go right to me, and I'm very good at getting back to people. If anybody has any questions, if there's anything I can help them with, I love connecting with people, and I'm more than happy to connect with any listeners and anyone from your audience who just, even if all they want is just a word of advice, I'm happy to give it.
Excellent. And I'll make sure that those contact details are included within the show notes. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the show. Before we leave, Sam, any final thoughts?
Well, I just want to say really thank you so much, Stuart. It's been a pleasure to be on your show. You're a wonderful host, and I really wish you much success with your show. This is a great show and a great opportunity for people, and I really appreciate you having me coming on. And I just, the one thing I would say to your audience is, if you have a dream, if you have an idea, anything, if you want to pursue it, just go for it. Just take baby steps towards it if it seems daunting. But just go out and do it, because if you don't, you'll never know.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.